A website that a visitor can't move around on is a website that a visitor won't be on for long. Using the anchor element, we'll see how easy it is to create links from one web page to another web page on your website, and from your website to another location on the internet. Let's see how it's done. In this lesson, we'll create our first links in our web page. We've been working on a file called hubble.htm. We'll continue working with that file in this lesson. From the Chapter 5 folder, I'm going to open hubble.htm in my web browser and in my HTML editor, which is TextEdit. So I'll drag hubble.htm onto the TextEdit icon, or in Notepad on the PC. And I'll just arrange my windows side by side. And as we've seen, we have two images of Saturn in this file. What we're going to do is we're going to discard the second image, and we're going to replace it with a link out to a NASA website where these images were originally downloaded from. Now in HTML, we call links links because the word link is shorthand for the word hyperlink, which when you visit any website, if I bring up the Total Training website for a moment, when you look in the URL string before any website address, you'll notice more often than not the HTTP protocol, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, the HT standing for hypertext. When the internet first came about, there were no images in web pages. There were only text and hypertext links on that text to other pages of hypertext. Lots of information, visually boring. But the way we create links is exactly the same now as it was then. So how do we do that? I'll just close down that website, shrink down my browser and tuck it over here in the corner. I'm going to scroll down in my HTML file and find the second reference to that image of Saturn. And I'm just going to select it by holding down my left mouse button and dragging over the image tag and hitting the delete key on my keyboard. Likewise, I'm going to delete the H2 element, and I'll just hit the delete key on my keyboard a bunch of times until this H2 reference is gone. Because instead, I want to put a block of text. And I'm going to put that text inside a paragraph element. And I'll close that paragraph element before I forget. And the text that I'm going to write will read, "See more images of Saturn from the source." Straightforward enough. But how do I make hypertext out of this text? We're going to use what's referred to as the anchor tag to establish a hypertext reference on a selection of text. If we decide that we would like the words "see more images of Saturn" to be a hyperlink, we'll position our mouse before the letter S in C and type the following tag: open caret A close caret. Likewise, we'll close this A tag, this anchor tag, immediately after the word Saturn. Now we're not done yet. We just created the opening and closing tag for this hypertext reference. But for this anchor tag to take us anywhere, we need to use an href attribute. So after the A in the opening anchor tag, I'll type space and type href equals quote quote. href standing for hypertext reference. So we have an opening anchor tag with a hypertext reference attribute and a closing anchor tag wrapped around the text, "See more images of Saturn." Within the quotes of the href attribute, we'll enter the URL of the website that we wish to link to. Now, because NASA is always updating their site, this link may disappear and you may have to link to another site. But for now, we're going to enter this link. It is very important to remember to include the protocol, which in this case is, as we had seen on the Total Training website, HTTP Hypertext Transfer Protocol, // and now the web address of the site you would like to link to. If we were linking to the Total Training website, we would go www.totaltraining.com. But in this case, we want to link to the NASA website. So instead, we'll link to nix.nasa.gov. Now we're going to add another attribute before we see this link in action. And that attribute is a target attribute, which reads target equals ... The reason we want to do this is that without a target attribute, the website that you're linking to would open inside the current browser window. More often than not, it's been my experience that when you're creating a link to another website on your website, you want that link to open in a new window, because as soon as someone clicks on that link, they're gone. They're no longer on your site. Usually, the overriding principle on the website that I'm working on is trying to keep the visitor where they are, rather than giving them someplace else to go. Giving them someplace else to go is nice, as long as it doesn't take them away from you. Launching a file in a web browser or launching a website in a new browser window is a handy way of giving more useful information to somebody without sending them away completely. So, within our target attribute, we're going to enter a value, _blank. This will tell the web browser to launch this web address in a new web browser window or in a new tab. Current web browsers allow for tabs instead of just multiple windows, which we'll see in a moment. So now, if I save this file from the File menu and select Save, switch over to my browser and hit Reload, and scroll down, I'll see the first image of Saturn, and then beneath that, a link, See more images of Saturn from the source. If I mouse over that text, my cursor changes to a finger icon, indicating that there is a link associated with that text. I'll just size my browser down a little bit, put my cursor back over that text, and in the status bar here on Firefox, you can see that web address is listed at the bottom of the browser window. If I click on that link, a new tab is launched. Let me increase the size of my browser to make it a little easier for you to see. A new tab is launched rather than a new window, which is a preference unique to this machine that this recording is made on. Your computer may be set to a default to launch hypertext references that have a target equals _blank attribute on them in a new window, as opposed to a new tab as it was on my machine. And now your website visitors can link to a place where they can download all kinds of wonderful imagery and still have your website open in the current browser session.